of enormous importance. Welcome to your 25th Ontario Heritage Conference, where you will rediscover the past to enhance the future. You are about to hear from several worthy dignitaries. MPP Laura Albanese, Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport. Our very own MPP Garfield Dunlop and MP Bruce Stanton. Our local mayors Jerry Marshall and Gord McKay. And Deputy Mayor Bill Rawson. Believe me, these folks work very hard to avoid becoming history. Don't you? Your conference committee has worked for nearly 3 years to put together a program that will show you just how much we treasure Huronia. You will walk where 8 intrepid Jesuit pioneers met their death by martyrdom. You will enjoy Georgian Bay vistas from the deck of an Edwardian passenger steamship older than the Titanic, the fabulous SS Keewatin. You will hear how, subsequent to horrifying carnage and butchery, the great Shawnee warrior, Tecumseh, took a lethal pistol shot to the chest and died gallantly on the field of battle on October 5th, 1813. You will hear from the larger-than-life, tiny, perfect mayor who governed Toronto 40 years ago without any cracks in his arm. You will discover an historic naval establishment chosen by Sir John Riggs Simcoe for its strategic importance on the Upper Great Lakes. And if you can't see all that this weekend, you'll just have to come back. I hear you are also celebrating the 80th anniversary of ACO. Happy anniversary. And remember, next year's conference is in Cornwall. So cried the 7th day of June in the year of our Lord, 2013. God bless history and God save the Queen.
Wonder how she calls her family for breakfast. Well, good morning. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Vince Evans, and I'm just your MC for this evening. Morning. I want to introduce the co-chairs that have been working so diligently over these past years, Terry Fagerty and Susan McKenzie. Welcome. Also, Roscoe Petrovic, Community Heritage of Ontario. Susan Radcliffe, President, Architectural Conservancy of Ontario. Royal Wave. And Marcus Letourneau, Vice President, Ontario Association of Heritage Professionals. So we're going right to the best part of the morning already. We're going to invite the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Culture, Ms. Laura Albanese, to come and bring greetings and speak for us. Please welcome her.
Thank you, Vince. And good morning, everyone. I'm really honored to be here this morning as Parliamentary Assistant to Michael Chan. He's the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport in the province of Ontario. And I'm here to help you kick off the 2013 Ontario Heritage Conference. And Minister Chan has asked me to bring his greetings to, well, first of all, my good friend and colleague, the MPP, Garfield Dunlop, whom you all know, and MP Bruce Stanton, and the mayors, Gordon McKay and Jerry Marshall, and Deputy Mayor Bill Rawson, who are so graciously hosting us here in their historic communities. And to all the men and women who are here today and that work so hard to ensure that Ontario's rich and diverse heritage is protected. And I know you do a lot of work. I am delighted to welcome you all to this conference. This is one of the few opportunities during the year for people from all areas of the heritage sector and all corners of the province to gather together to share ideas, to learn from each other, to celebrate your successes, and to re-energize to face the challenges ahead. And we know there are some challenges. The importance of the work that you do is felt every day in communities throughout this great province. And on behalf of the Government of Ontario, I would like to express our gratitude for the commitment, the passion, and the countless volunteer hours that you bring to this cause. The contributions of volunteers and heritage organizations at the local level is critical to the protection of our heritage resources. And great strides are being made in cultural heritage conservation across Ontario's municipalities. Now, you may think that I come from Toronto and I perhaps don't understand much about heritage, but even in my own little riding of York South-Weston, we do have a heritage society, and we're trying to get a heritage district within the heart of my community, and I know how hard the people of the Weston Historical Society work, so I am familiar with that. I'm pleased to note that since last year's conference in Kingston, 5 new heritage conservation districts have been established throughout the province, in Oakville, in Ottawa, in Windsor, and the first heritage conservation districts for the towns of Perth and St. Mary's. And together, these new districts will protect over 500 properties. Also, since last year's conference, 3 new municipal heritage committees have been appointed in the communities of St. Clair, Hearst, and Oromidanti. And the town of Huntsville has recently reinstated their committee. So municipalities with municipal heritage committees now represent over 90% of the population of Ontario. And that's quite an achievement. So ladies and gentlemen, these are remarkable accomplishments that you should all be proud of, because it is accomplishments like these that help to advance the cause of heritage protection in Ontario. And as you all well know, heritage conservation encourages a deeper sense of identity by helping communities to remember and to understand their past. It is also an important form of economic development that can attract visitors from all over to experience what Ontario has to offer. And some of you may be familiar with the recent study commissioned by the Ontario Arts Council, which showed that arts and culture tourists spend more and stay longer, twice as much per trip as a typical tourist. And what is the largest driver of arts and culture trips to Ontario? Visits to historic sites and strolling through towns to see the architecture. Now, these activities attract 4 million, or nearly 20% of Ontario's North American tourists. And the benefits brought by cultural tourists extend far beyond the historical sites they come and see. These benefits are felt by people in the accommodations, dining, retail, and entertainment sectors as well. Like many of your communities, this is something that Midland, Benenton, and Tay know firsthand. Huronia is an area rich in history that visitors come to experience at places like St. Mary among the Hurons, Discovery Harbor, the newly opened SS Keewatin. And coming this August, the tall ships will arrive to commemorate the War of 1812. These are wonderful examples of how local history is coming to life for residents and visitors to enjoy. And I'm proud that the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport helps to support local heritage conservation in Aronia and all across the province. Through our ministry's attractions like Fort William Historical Park and Aronia Historical Parks, through our agencies like the Ontario Tourism Marketing Partnership, the Ontario Heritage Trust, and Ontario Trillium Foundation, which provided some funding support, I understand, for this conference, through our investments that help support the work of provincial heritage organizations, such as Community Heritage Ontario and the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario. And through the ongoing outreach efforts of ministry staff who work closely with municipal heritage committees and heritage organizations all throughout the province. Together with you, who are our community partners, we are investing in a better culture sector and a better quality of life for people. So I would like to extend my thanks to Community Heritage Ontario and the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario for organizing this wonderful conference. And I hope it will be a memorable experience for everyone who's attending. I just want to add before I conclude that I really believe in the importance of heritage, of preserving history. I was born and raised in Italy, and I immigrated to Canada over 30 years ago. I know that dates me, but I come from, I was born in a country that where history and heritage is a real big economic driver and is really important to people. And we need to create and sustain that here in Ontario and here in Canada. We need to create and preserve our own history. It is really important for future generations. It really creates that sense of identity. So thank you for all the work that you do. I really admire really all the hours and the effort that you put into it. So thank you for having me here, and all the best. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Nice to have you here. I hope we pronounced your name correctly. Good. Think of a couple that were traveling in the Maritimes, and they came to a little village, a little town, and the sign on the highway said, Shubenacadie. Well, they'd never heard of this, and they were arguing about how to pronounce it. They were still discussing the pronunciation of this name. It's Shubenacadie. They were still discussing how to pronounce this when they went out for lunch. So they came for lunch, and the fellow said, before your service, he said to the waitress, I want you to tell us where we are, and pronounce it slowly and carefully, please. So she leaned across and said, Tim Hortons. It's my pleasure now to introduce Mr. Garfield Dunlop, our MPP for Simcoe North. You come and bring greetings.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here today, and to all those who organized this conference and the participants. Congratulations on a job well done. Obviously, by how we were organized already this morning, it's going to be a huge success. I want to especially thank my colleague Laura Albanese for being here today. Laura, you know, you hear all this heckling. You see question period on TV, and you wonder, what are those politicians doing? Well, there's two that aren't doing any heckling, Laura and me. Okay? We don't do any heckling. But Laura is a class act and really a great person to have in this particular role. You know what, we're so proud. I think Laura mentioned something about being born in Italy. And in my first trip to Italy, my only trip to Italy, I should say, I was absolutely dumbfounded by the history there. You know, and they're preserving things that are over 2,000 years of age. And when you drive on these bus trips down the street, it just shows you how young we are in Canada and why we absolutely have to preserve our heritage in this country. And we think it's a really big deal because you know, we're celebrating the 400th anniversary of Champlain coming here in a couple of years' time, which is really, you know, it's one of the oldest things we have in our province. So to all of you that are that are preserving history in our province, in our country, thank you so much. Our communities really, really are important. My own little bit of history about heritage is the Coldwater Mill. And I live in Coldwater. Well, you folks know that. I'm just down the road about 25 kilometers. And the Coldwater Mill was a building built in 1833. And a guy purchased the property, couldn't operate as a mill any longer. And he purchased the property and couldn't sell it. And so he had got a demolition permit. And so my wife and I were counsel sort of thing at the time, and I kept telling me, we were down in Niagara on the lake. And we seen all the heritage buildings down there. We had a couple of glasses of wine, true story. And I said, you know what, we got to go home and do something about it. And so we went home and organized a public meeting. And you know what? That's all they needed was leadership. They needed someone to organize the meeting. At that meeting, we raised $40-some thousand. People just wrote the checks out, and we bought the mill. And if you have a chance to go to Coldwater while you're here, you'll see the beautiful Coldwater Mill, one of the oldest structures in Simcoe County. So keep up the good work, everybody. Look forward to a wonderful weekend and enjoy the rich history of Inland Pettatanquishene and the township of Tate. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Garfield. Garfield and his wife Jean are grandparents. And that made me think of a story of a little boy who looked up his grandpa and says, "Grandpa, can you make a noise like a frog?" Grandpa says, "A noise like a frog? I suppose I could, but why on earth would you want me to make a noise like a frog?" And he says, "Well, Daddy says as soon as you croak, we're all going to Disneyland." Please welcome Mr. Bruce Stanton.
That's a tough one to follow. Well, thank you, Vince, and good morning, everyone. Je souhaite la bienvenue aux villes de Midland, ville de Pettatanquishene, et le canton de Tate. As you all know, we're just so delighted to have you here to show off this rich corner of Ontario's heritage and history. Some of our earlier communities are wonderful attractions. It is a great compliment to both organizations sponsoring as well as the organizing committee to put this wonderful conference together and celebrate our story. As so many of you get involved in your own capacities across the province to maintain Canada's and Ontario's story, particularly for people who are new to our province, new to our country. There is nothing better than making sure that there are touchstones for all of us as citizens and as Canadians to understand and reflect on what got us here. These are lessons that we all take forward. It's just, I bring greetings on behalf, of course, of the Government of Canada. Delighted to see that your continued work is there. I must say you have an exceptional lineup in the next few days. I look at the speakers, the caliber of the personalities and the stories that will come from as part of this conference. It's a great delight to have you here in this part of the world, and I wish you all the best in the next day or two's deliberations. I know you'll have an exceptional conference. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
I heard of a woman that was a great-grandmother for the first time. And she was so excited. She had a great-grandson. And they asked if she would look after him, for a while the couple went off for the afternoon. So they delivered the baby. He was sound asleep. So she put him down. And the folks went off for their afternoon. Well, fairly soon some friends started to come and visit. "We hear you got your grandson here. Can we see him?" "Well, you'll have to wait till he cries." And some other folks came and they said, "Can we see the baby now?" They said, "Well, you'll have to wait till he cries." And she said this several times. And finally somebody said, "Why do we have to wait until he cries before we can see your grandson?" She said, "Well, To tell you the truth, I can't remember where I put him. Sitting on the end of the row here is our beloved mayor, Mr. Gordon McKay, and we'll welcome you now for words of greeting, please.
Decided whether I wanted to do a comedy act or get into the heritage part of it. So I had more fun with the jokes. Bonjour tout le monde. Ani, and welcome to this conference. It is truly a pleasure to be before you this morning and bring greetings, first of all, on behalf of the people of Midland, but also our very good neighbors in Penetanguishene and the township of Tay. You've got quite a challenging agenda ahead of you, and I love the title, Rediscover the Past to Enhance the Future. And this is something, believe it or not, municipal politicians deal with every day. We have had quite a historical community of the Wendat people in our area. And those of you at the museum last night, Jamie Hunter spoke to this, that there was communities of 30 to 40,000 Wendat people in this area. Well, today Midland has a population per capita of about 11% of Aboriginal people. And we do work with that every day in the town of Midland. 1615, the French arrived and they came to Penetanguishene, the first mass at Caragua, and that brought the French influence. And to this day, we live very close to our very good neighbors in Penetanguishene who bring this French flavor to our discussions and joint efforts as we work with our two communities. Then the War of 1812 came, and it was in 1812. And first of all, that we had a naval establishment, again put in Penetanguishene, but we saw a lot of veterans located in this area. And they brought, if you will, the British influence and started a lot of industry. The railway came in. And again, this is reflected in a lot of the industries, a lot of the jobs, and a lot of the people who came out of Midland to this area. So each and every day, the municipal politicians sort of live our history. And every once in a while, it is good to take an opportunity like this to just stop and reflect upon it and realize how alive our history is for all of us. So I'm looking forward to this conference. I hope to drop in from time to time and hear some of these insights. But it's great to be here with you here today, and I wish you all of the well. Get out there and see Midland. Thank you.
Well, we do have a high school in Midland Secondary School. And one morning there was a substitute teacher. He was standing, leaning his head on the locker door and muttering, "How on earth did you get into this?" One of the teachers felt so sorry for him, put his arm on his shoulder and said, "Are you okay?" He said, "I'll be fine as soon as I get this kid out of his locker." Mr. Jerry Marshall is the mayor of Penetanguishene. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. It's always hard to be the last politician on the stage here, and then following an act like this is going to even be tougher. But thanks so much for coming to our communities to share in our area and our experience and our history. And as Gordon alluded to, I mean, it's a lot of history here. We have 400 years of history, 4 cultures and 4 seasons. There's a lot to enjoy in this area. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to feel, and the benefits, as Gordon said, the economic lift, as Laura indicated too, as well. Is valuable, and we're just starting to rediscover that opportunity that heritage brings and history brings to each community, and how to make that part of something further and to grow upon that base. If you look at our community in Penetanguishene, we have a church, St. James in the Line, 175 years old. Some of you will see it this weekend. So we've had the Governor General here in town. We had Prince Edward here last summer. So people are discovering us, and it's drawing a different element, a different optics to our community that really adds value. And when Prince Edward comes, people in our communities go, "Wow, what's here that maybe we've got to rediscover and reinvestigate and reinvest in?" And certainly that light comes on for municipal politicians in terms of how do we build our communities, what's important to our communities, how do we support our community needs. And heritage is just such a large part of it, and we're very grateful that the conference is here this year. We certainly hope that you get to enjoy all 3 of our communities, although I have to get a little nervous, I should say. I kind of feel like a wedding. So you use something old, something new, and something borrowed. So last night you guys opened up the conference at the museum, which is something old. Today you're in something new, which is spectacular, this beautiful conference center here in Midland. So I'm a little concerned about what you're going to borrow from Penetanguishene. But I'll check it out Sunday. Enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.
Well, there was a couple that stopped for gas at a service center. They were at a service center. They're on a motoring trip. The only thing is, his wife was quite hard of hearing. And the guy at the next pump, he was quite friendly and talkative. The guy said, "That's a nice car. What is it?" The fellow said, "It's a Mercedes." His wife said, "What did he say?" "He just wanted to know what kind of car we're driving." "Oh." The fellow said, "Where are you heading?" He said, "Well, we're going to Buffalo." She said, "What did he say?" "He just wanted to know where we're going." And then the fellow said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Well, we're from Penetanguishene." The wife said, "What did he say?" "He just wanted to know where we were from." And the fellow said, "Penetanguishene. Oh, years ago I met a woman in Penetanguishene, and she was the most miserable, ugliest woman I've ever met. She had a temper that you couldn't stand. She was just so ugly and hopeless." The fellow said, "Oh." The woman said, "What did he say?" The guy said, "He thinks he knew your mother." Russell's not here. Well, we've been through our list of speakers, and we have a little bit of time left. Mr. Rossman's not here, I understand. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to tell you another joke. Sorry, it's time to fill in. But an older couple and their son, they visited Toronto for the first time. They lived up here, had a farm up here, never been south of Barrie. And they decided they would take their son down to Toronto. It was an older couple. Well, she took us, they went to the Queen Elizabeth Hotel, they were sitting in there, and the mother window shopped. Well, the father and the son strolled around the foyer. And they were really fascinated by the silver wall that sort of opened up. People would walk in and it would close again. And the boy says, "What's that, Pa?" He says, "I don't know." But then it opened up and an old lady shuffled in, carrying a couple of shopping bags, not looking very well kept. And she went into there. He said, "What's she doing, Pa?" He says, "I don't know." And the doors closed and they noticed numbers up at the top. The numbers went right up to 21. He said, "What's happening, Pa?" He says, "I don't know." Well, then the numbers started coming down again. The door opened, and out walked this gorgeous young woman, dressed to the T's, beautifully made up, stylish clothes and everything, and Pa looked at her. And without taking his eyes off her, he said, "Son, go get your mother." One more, then we're going to let you out early for coffee. We do have a seniors club here, Ascanonia Seniors Group. Well, apparently a man in his early 70s, quite fit and trim, decided to join the Ascanonia. And he entered into all the activities, the line dancing and the crafts and everything. But he noticed this one woman watching him all the time. Finally, he thought, I'm going to find out what's with this lady. And he said to her, "Madam, I hope you don't mind me asking, but you've been watching me so intently ever since I came in here. What's the reason?" She said, "Well, you remind me so much of my fourth husband." He said, "Oh, really? How many times have you been married?" She says, 3. So we have no reason to not be back on time for our guest speaker at 10 o'clock. You're dismissed.
Excuse me, hold on. We've got a list here of 4 people who represent heritage organisations who are supposed to be speaking to us right now. Susan Ratcliffe, Roscoe Petrovic, Bill Smith and Chris Bogle.
Yes,
They're all on the programme.
They were introduced earlier, I believe.
Are they going to speak?
No.
Oh, okay. They've all got good jokes, I'm sure.
They wanted more money than I asked for.
Good morning. My name is Terry Fagerty. I'm the co-chair, one of the co-chairs of the committee, and it was my distinct pleasure to arrange for our MC this morning. I don't think anybody's disappointed in that choice, that's for sure. We want to thank you very much for coming to the conference. We're sure that you will enjoy the variety of the sessions that we have planned for you. We wish you a great time. Thank you very much. Just before I go, Roscoe, would you like to say something off the cuff? Off the cuff. We won't hold you to any standards of precision. All right. Thank you.
Oh, you can speak for 30 seconds.
Yeah. Roscoe is president of OHC.
Well, welcome everyone to the 2013 conference. There have been so many wonderful speakers before me. I'm trying to find the words to supplement all those wonderful speeches, but really, speaking from the heart, I have to tell you that as Canadians, we should be very proud of our nation, what we have in here, the kind of people that we have, and we should not forget that our history, heritage, and our culture is not negotiable. We have to work and protect it and prevent the destruction and the obliteration of our history. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roscoe. Susan, would you like to say something? Susan Ratcliffe is president of ACO, which is enjoying its 80th anniversary this year.
Thank you. In 1933, one man saved one house in one little village in Ontario. 80 years later, we stand here as the voice to advocate for heritage for all of those other little houses, big houses, industrial buildings, schools, the places we treasure in our community. We thank the organizers of this and welcome you to help us celebrate our 80th birthday. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus, would you like to say a few words for OAHP?
Good morning. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Ontario Association of Heritage Professionals and from the Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals, I'd like to thank the local communities for the organizing of this year's committee and to thank for the opportunity to participate in such an important provincial conference. The Ontario Association of Heritage Professionals is the body who represents the consultants and the local firms who work on heritage projects, and we are very pleased to be participating with the important community volunteers that are present here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. One other person I'd like to ask to come up is sort of the great eminence behind this this conference. He's the one that brought it to this area, and he makes all the things happen. He still uses a Rolodex, and so with the size of this this podium, and everybody takes his calls, and everybody wants to help out when he asks them to. Can you say a few words, Bill? Bill Smith.
Thank you. Yes, it's been 3 years probably since the letters went out to the 3 municipalities saying this was a good idea. And partway through it, you say to yourself,
how did this idea ever get out of the box? But I'm glad it did. You're here, brand new Arts and Culture Center here in downtown Midland, which is on to see the old Roxy Theatre being torn down was a little nasty for someone who's an advocate for heritage preservation. But to have another Arts and Culture Center theater rise on its foundation is really heartwarming. I also wanted to point out that Sue McKenzie, who's chair of the Midland Municipal Heritage Committee, had a great idea too to rename a park here in Midland. And we're dedicating the park, and the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario is coming up here on his birthday to rededicate, or it's not rededicate, it's to name and dedicate the park at the bottom of the main street. So he will be here Wednesday the 12th, right after this conference. You're right into it again. So it's people like that, and it's our committee, the volunteers, everybody that got together to do this. You know, sort of Terry giving me a lot of credit, but you know, we were glued to our computers and emails for the last year. Yeah. So thank you all for coming. Enjoy. We've tried to leave breaks long enough where you can interact, mingle, and talk, because some of the previous conferences, they're so packed, jammed, you don't get a chance to talk to everybody else that you don't see except for once a year. So enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Just one last comment. People from Cornwall are here, and Cornwall is hosting next year's conference. So from 2013 to 2014,